The throne room of Queen Solara, grand and awe-inspiring, was filled with an ominous tension. The towering, silver-veined marble pillars cast long shadows, and the ceiling, adorned with golden constellations of past victories, gleamed under the dim light. Yet for all its grandeur, the throne room felt like a prison today. Queen Solara sat upon her dark obsidian throne, her once confident posture reduced to one of worry, her sharp features showing signs of exhaustion. Before her, the Zoran High Council debated furiously. Their voices, usually steady and calm, were now filled with panic. The cause of this uproar was not a political rebellion or an outside threat, but something far more personal and, to many, far more terrifying. Her beast, the last of its kind, was dying. The creature in question, known as Verak, had been the guardian of the Zoran throne for over 2 centuries. Towering over anything alive, Verak was both a symbol of power and terror, his scales harder than any known material, his eyes glowing with a savage intelligence. But Verak had been poisoned. The Zoran had no idea how it had happened or who was responsible, but the creature had stopped moving, its once fiery breath reduced to shallow, labored gasps. "Your Majesty, we must accept that Verak is beyond saving," said Prime Advisor Thrask, his voice thick with reluctance. "We have tried everything in our power, and yet the beast's condition continues to worsen. It would be wise to prepare for his death. We cannot afford to pour more resources into a lost cause." Queen Solara narrowed her eyes at Thrask, her fists clenching the armrests of her throne. "Verak is not just a beast, Prime Advisor. He is the protector of this throne of our people. His death would signal our vulnerability to the other species in the galaxy. They would sense our weakness and come for us. With all due respect, Your Majesty, Verak has been a loyal guardian, but no creature lives forever. If the galaxy sees us without him, we will adapt. We must focus on finding another method of protection," Thrask countered, though his gaze faltered under the Queen's icy glare. "Another method?" Solara echoed bitterly. "Do you propose we simply replace the irreplaceable? Verak was bred from the ancient war beasts of our ancestors. His bloodline is unique, and no other beast in the galaxy can match his might. We cannot afford to lose him." As the council members resumed their futile debate, a whisper reached Solara's ears from her personal aide, Liara. "There may be another option, Your Majesty." Solara turned her head slightly. "Speak." Liara hesitated, then spoke in a low tone. "There are rumors far in the outer reaches of the galaxy of a species capable of healing even the most grievous wounds. The humans they call themselves. They are not known for their strength, but for their adaptability. There are stories of them healing creatures far larger than themselves, of using technology and intuition in ways that defy our understanding." The Queen frowned. "Humans, those creatures from the fringe worlds? They are barely a blip on the galactic stage." "Perhaps," Liara said quietly. "But desperation has often led to strange alliances." Solara's gaze hardened as she mulled over the thought. "A human, to heal Verak?" She stood abruptly, her voice cutting through the arguments of the council. "Enough, I have made my decision." The room fell into stunned silence. Solara's voice was as cold as the void of space. "If we cannot find a solution within the Zoran, then we must look beyond. I will summon this human and see if these rumors bear any truth." The council members exchanged uneasy glances, but none dared oppose her. After all, who would question the Queen when she had the weight of her throne and a dying beast to protect? Within hours, a message was sent across the stars, its destination, the far-flung human colonies. The request was simple. The Queen of Zoran required a healer, one capable of feats beyond what her kind could imagine. On the human colony of Espra 9, deep in the outer reaches of the galaxy, Dr. Elias Cross was finishing a routine day of work in his modest clinic. A specialist in xenobiology, Elias had made a name for himself by treating creatures most would run from in terror. His work ranged from common ailments among local wildlife to more dangerous injuries suffered by alien species that came seeking help. Elias wiped his brow, sitting back in his chair and glancing out the window at the twin suns setting in the sky. His small clinic was quiet, a place where he found peace amidst the chaos of alien biology. He was not prepared for what would come next. The door to his clinic burst open, and a figure stepped inside, cloaked in shadows. Elias recognized the attire immediately. Zoran ceremonial armor. The Zoran never visited his clinic. He stood up, his curiosity piqued, but his expression cautious. "Dr. Elias Cross?" The figure spoke in a deep, gravely voice. "That's me," Elias replied, his brow furrowing. "What can I do for you?" The Zoran soldier stepped forward, holding out a sealed holo message. "By order of Queen Solara of the Zoran Empire, you are commanded to accompany me to the capital world of Zoran Prime. There is a creature that requires your unique talents." Elias stared at the holo message, blinking in surprise. "The Zoran Queen? I'm a small-time xenobiologist. Why would she need me?" The soldier's face remained impassive. "Because only a fool would dare attempt what she asks of you." Elias hesitated, feeling the weight of the decision before him, but something stirred inside him, a desire to test his skills on the most formidable challenge he had ever faced. "All right," he said, his voice steady. "I'll go." The journey to Zoran Prime was swift, the Zoran ship cutting through space with precision. Elias sat in the passenger seat, watching as stars blurred by, his mind racing. He had heard tales of the Zoran warbeasts, but never in his wildest dreams did he imagine he would be tasked with saving one. As they approached Zoran Prime, a massive planet covered in gleaming spires and colossal structures, the ship began its descent. Elias felt a growing sense of unease, but also excitement. He had no idea what awaited him, but he knew one thing for certain. If he succeeded, it would change everything. The Zoran Queen's throne room awaited him, and with it, the dying beast he was expected to save. Chapter 2. The beast of Zoran. Elias stepped out of the transport shuttle, his boots crunching on the smooth stone of the palace courtyard. Zoran Prime's atmosphere was heavy with tension, even more so in the presence of the towering spires and statues that represented centuries of conquest and unchallenged dominance. The air was thick with an almost palpable sense of foreboding. Elias looked up, taking in the grandeur of the Zoran palace, feeling dwarfed by the architecture, and then his thoughts turned to the task ahead. "Stay close, human," barked the Zoran soldier who had escorted him. "The queen does not like to wait." Elias followed, his heart pounding. He had read about the Zoran warbeasts in old alien biology texts. These creatures were legends, bred from ancient stock that had survived mass extinctions, plagues, and galactic wars. But he knew that legends often came with exaggerated tales, and the reality of what he might face was likely even worse. As they entered the palace, the darkened hallways and ornate carvings on the walls told tales of past triumphs. Yet now the mood was somber. It was clear that Verak's impending death had cast a long shadow over the Zoran Empire. Elias was led through the massive arched doors of the throne room, where Queen Solara waited, her piercing blue eyes focused solely on him as he entered. She was tall, with an imposing presence, her royal armor glinting under the light of the distant star illuminating the room. "Dr. Cross," she spoke with a voice both regal and laced with tension, "you are here because my beast is dying, and no Zoran healer has been able to save him. If you fail, the consequences for both of us will be severe." Elias swallowed hard. "I'll do my best, Your Majesty." "Come," she commanded, turning swiftly, her cloak swirling behind her as she led the way through another set of towering doors. They descended deep into the heart of the palace, where the air became cooler and the lights dimmer. The sounds of the bustling palace above faded away, leaving only the echo of their footsteps. As they approached a cavernous chamber, Elias's breath caught in his throat. There, lying on a bed of rock and crystal, was Verak. The creature was far larger than anything Elias had ever seen, his black scales like polished obsidian, cracked and dull in places, and his great wings curled around his massive body, as though shielding himself from further harm. Verak's once fierce, glowing eyes were now dim and sunken, and his breathing was shallow, labored. For a moment, Elias felt fear course through him. This was not just an injured animal. Verak was something more, a creature of ancient power, a living weapon of the Zoran Empire, a beast bred for war and destruction, and yet here he lay, helpless. Elias stepped forward cautiously, feeling the weight of Solara's gaze on him. He knelt beside Verak, studying the beast's symptoms. He could see the discoloration around the veins under the creature's scales, the way his chest heaved with each shallow breath, and the faint traces of a foreign toxin in the air around him. Poison, Elias muttered to himself, but it's something different. Solara's voice cut through the air. What do you see, human? Can you save him? Elias stood, his mind racing as he mentally catalogued the symptoms. I don't know yet, Your Majesty. This isn't a natural poison. It's something engineered, designed specifically to kill Verax slowly. But I need more time to analyze it. You don't have time. Thrask, the Prime Advisor, stormed into the room, his voice thick with impatience. We've given this human a chance, but it's obvious he's out of his depth. This beast is a relic of the past, Your Majesty. Let it go. Solara's glare could have melted steel. Verax is not just a beast, he is a symbol of our strength. If we lose him, we lose our advantage in the galaxy. Elias took a deep breath and stepped between them. Give me a chance. I've seen poisons like this before on a much smaller scale. If I can isolate the toxin and identify its source, I might be able to create an antidote. But I'll need full access to your medical archives and labs. Solara's eyes locked on him, searching for any sign of deception or weakness. Finally, she nodded. You'll have everything you need. But know this, human. If you fail, you will not leave this planet alive. Chapter 3. The antidote. Elias worked tirelessly in the Zoran laboratories, surrounded by advanced technology far beyond what humans typically had access to. Despite the cutting-edge equipment, the process was slow, the poison complex. Days turned into nights as Elias analyzed the data, running simulations, testing compounds, and observing Verax's declining condition. Each day Solara visited the lab, her presence a constant reminder of the immense pressure weighing on Elias's shoulders. He could see the concern in her eyes, though she never spoke of it. Verax was more than just a guardian to her. He was a connection to the ancient lineage of the Zoran, a reminder of their history and dominance. As Elias worked, he began to notice something peculiar about the poison. It wasn't simply killing Verax, it was attacking his very biology, targeting the genetic markers that made the creature unique. Whoever had designed the toxin wanted to ensure that no other beast of Verax's kind would rise again. There, Elias said, speaking into his audio log late one night, it's targeting the ancient DNA. The Zoran war beasts were engineered thousands of years ago, and this poison is designed to destroy that genetic line. But why? As the days passed, Elias grew closer to a breakthrough. He isolated a key enzyme in the toxin that was breaking down Verax's cells. If he could create a compound to block the enzyme, it might just give Verax a chance to recover. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Elias had a vial of the antidote. It was untested, and there were no guarantees it would work. But it was the only hope left. He approached Solara in the throne room, the vial in hand. This is it. I think I've found a way to neutralize the poison. But Verax is weak, we have to act now. Solara looked at him, her face unreadable. Then she nodded. Do it. Elias returned to Verax's chamber, his heart pounding. The beast lay motionless, his breathing so faint that Elias feared it might already be too late. With trembling hands, Elias injected the antidote into the largest vein he could find, watching as the liquid slowly seeped into the creature's bloodstream. For a moment, nothing happened. The room was deathly silent, the only sound Verax's shallow breaths. Then slowly the beast stirred. His eyes flickered, the dullness fading as a faint glow began to return. His chest rose and fell with more strength, and Elias could hear a low rumbling growl building deep within Verax's throat. It's working, Elias whispered, hardly daring to believe it. Solara stepped forward, her face lighting up with hope for the first time since Elias had arrived. You did it, human. But just as relief washed over the room, a loud crash echoed through the palace halls. The doors to Verax's chamber were flung open, and a group of Zoran soldiers stormed in, their weapons raised. Thrask stood at the front, his eyes burning with betrayal. You fool, you've doomed us all. Chapter 4. The Final Battle. The tension in the room lingered, the air still thick with the aftermath of Verax's awakening. Elias could feel the heat radiating from the great beast behind him, but he stood firm, his hands raised to keep the situation calm. Verax, despite his regained strength, seemed to understand that the conflict wasn't with Elias, nor with Queen Solara. The creature's breathing was heavy, his eyes focused not on the soldiers but on Thrask, who still glared with distrust. Elias stepped forward cautiously. Varric is loyal to the Queen as he always has been. There's no need for more violence. This beast isn't our enemy. He's a victim, just like the rest of us. Thrask, however, was unmoved. His eyes blazed with a deep-seated fear, but also determination. You don't understand what you've done, human. Varrac's power was never meant to be unleashed without the ancient controls, and now that those are gone, we are all in danger. Queen Solara stepped in between them, her voice sharp. Thrask, you have lost sight of what truly matters. You allowed your fear to control your judgment. Varric has been our protector for centuries, and he will remain so now that he is healed. Your actions have endangered the Empire more than any threat Varric poses. You think this is about fear? Thrask's voice dripped with venom. This is about survival. That beast is a weapon we no longer control. If you can't see that, then you're a fool. Before anyone could react, Thrask raised his hand, signaling the soldiers to move forward. They advanced with caution, weapons aimed directly at Varric, ready to fire at the slightest movement. The creature, sensing the threat, let out a low, rumbling growl that echoed through the chamber. Elias's heart pounded in his chest. If a battle broke out now, there was no way he could stop Varric from defending himself, and in his current state, the beast could level the entire palace. Desperation flooded him. He needed to stop this before it escalated into bloodshed. Wait, Elias called out, raising his voice above the tense murmurs of the soldiers. Thrask, if you're right about Varric's power, then we can find a way to control it again. But killing him won't solve anything. It'll only weaken the Zoran even further. Thrask turned, his face twisted in disbelief. You think we can control that thing? You think you, a human, know better than the Zoran Council about the dangers of this creature? I'm not saying I know better, Elias replied, stepping closer. But I know this, Varric isn't attacking us. He's holding back because he understands loyalty. If we destroy him, we're throwing away the very strength that has protected this empire for centuries. For a moment there was silence. The soldiers hesitated, their weapons still trained on Varric, but their fingers no longer hovering over the triggers. Even Thrask seemed to waver, uncertainty flickering in his eyes as he glanced between Varric and Solara. Solara, her eyes fierce and commanding, stepped beside Elias. This human speaks the truth, Thrask. Varric's loyalty has never been in question. What is in question is your loyalty to me, to the throne, and to the Zoran people. Thrask flinched at her words, but his defiance remained. My loyalty has always been to the survival of our people, your majesty. Then stand down, Solara commanded, her voice sharp as a blade. Your actions today have only brought us closer to destruction. But Varric still stands with us. The question is, will you? Thrask stared at her, his jaw tight. For a long moment, it seemed as though he might ignore the Queen's order, that his fear of Varric's power would drive him to act against her. But then, slowly, he lowered his hand, signaling the soldiers to stand down. The tension in the room released like a breaking dam. The soldiers, one by one, lowered their weapons, stepping back from Varric's imposing form. Elias exhaled a breath of relief, though the weight of the situation still hung over him. Thrask, his face twisted in frustration and defeat, glared at Elias one final time. You've made a mistake, human. And when Varric's power turns on us, you will have to live with the consequences. Without waiting for a response, Thrask turned and stormed out of the chamber, his soldiers following in silence. Elias stood there, still tense, but relieved that the immediate threat had passed. He turned to Varric, the massive beast whose eyes had dimmed from the fierce glow they held moments ago. Varric's breathing had steadied, and though his posture was still one of wariness, there was no sign of aggression. You did well, Solara said, her voice softer now. She approached Varric, placing a hand on one of his massive scaled legs. You've proven your loyalty once again, old friend. Varric let out a low rumble, a sound that seemed almost content. Elias smiled at the interaction, though his thoughts still buzzed with questions.